Welcome to Inside Badger Nation on Madison CW. Now your hosts, Ben Wargle and Phil Dawson.
Welcome into another edition of Inside Badger Nation. Phil Dawson from the Big 1070, joined by Ben Wargle of BADGERNATION.com. And today's show, we have you completely covered because there's a lot going on, including take a look back as the Badgers basketball team wrapped up their regular season this past week. We'll also take a look at what's up and coming for them in our Big Ten tournament preview. We'll go one-on-one with Chris Borland, who's looking to make his name in the NFL now, and plenty of recruiting updates for you and what to keep an eye on at the state basketball tournament in Madison this weekend. Ben, we do start, though, with Badger basketball. Wrapped up their regular season with a pair of games and had some award winners as well, so we'll touch on that. Let's start with going to Purdue. That's where the Badgers were 76-70 winners. It made it 8 straight for the Badgers, kept them right in the hunt of second place in the Big Ten. And of course, what we saw, Frank Kaminsky. A.J. Hammonds is the big man for the Purdue Boilermakers, and he wanted nothing to do with Big Frank outside of the arc. And Kaminsky has, 4 threes in this game, and the Badgers really wire-to-wire were in complete control. The 76-70 score really not indicative of how this game played out.
No, without question. I mean, Frank Kaminsky dominated this game, 8 for 11 shooting. As you can see, was very aggressive in the post, but also hit the mid-range jumper, and that allowed him also to go to the perimeter and be very effective there. When Kaminsky has that going, he's really a dynamic player. Same with Ben Brust, too. When he can hit those type of shots like we just saw, that really helps Wisconsin kind of spread out their offense. And this game, Phil, was really important, I thought, because Wisconsin was able to win this game and avoid a bad RPI loss. Purdue not going anywhere in the postseason unless they win the Big Ten tournament. An RPI of around 126, I believe, at the time of the game. And so Wisconsin would have lost this game. That would have been a big dent on their resume. Really probably would have put them on the back end of the 2 line. So now they go into the Big Ten tournament with some wiggle room. That if they lose their first game tomorrow, that Wisconsin still should feel very comfortable about being a 2 seed in the national tournament and playing in Milwaukee. And Nigel Hayes continues to make big strides. It's the reason why he was an award winner this year. Just a good effort for Wisconsin. Like you said, 76-70 the win, but really Wisconsin was in control of this game from start to finish.
Yeah, and you can see just the score there. I mean, they get up by 18 points in this one, and a run by Purdue pulled them within 7, and it was Sam Decker who had a pretty quiet night. He's had a couple of quiet nights recently for Wisconsin, but he had a big and one, hit his free throw, and the Badgers were able to close it out. A late 3 by Purdue pulled it within the final 6-point spread that it ended up finishing. Then the Badgers finishing at Nebraska, a ruckus environment, an incredible environment. And while the Badgers did lose, Ben, I came away feeling okay about it. Couple of reasons why. They were able to withstand the initial onslaught from Nebraska. They had some uncharacteristic items happen in this one. Turnovers, they had 11. Missed free throws where they shoot just above 50% in it. And those are 2 things that Wisconsin does well. They didn't do it well in this game. And the last thing is the dribble penetration that we saw by Shields and Pettaway, the 2 scorers who each had 26 points for Nebraska. That's something that we've known, right? It's a known Achilles heel for this team. And while that happened to be there, they're still in this game, still fighting till about the 10-minute mark in that second half.
As you could see earlier, Nebraska went on a 10-3 run. You can see by the reaction of the crowd, it was a raucous environment. The Pinnacle Bank Arena, its first year in existence for Nebraska, seats about 15,000. They crammed almost 16,000. It was called No Sit Sunday by Tim Miles, the Nebraska head coach. Nebraska's playing for their tournament lives, basically. This was a game they needed to have, a game that they could point at the top of their resume as being a good team. And so Nebraska, obviously, that 10-3 run, but Wisconsin, as you can see here, started to climb back in the game, actually led at halftime. And, you're right, Phil, that last 10 minutes just really kind of unraveled for them. They missed 15 of their last 19 shots. Decker, again, another quiet night, 3 for 9 shooting. The last 3 games, he's all been in single digits. Nigel Hayes, 2 for 7 from the free throw line. Trayvon Jackson, too, a rough game, 4 assists and 4 turnovers in the game. So just one of those things where it's just kind of an off half for Wisconsin, and against a team that was as desperate as they were, who needed the game as much as Nebraska did, especially on the road. It's a tough that's a tough thing to overcome. Nebraska finishes 15-1 at home this year. A big reason why the Cornhuskers are going into Indianapolis feeling very confident about their postseason chances for the first time since 1998.
Yeah, very impressive win for Nebraska. Badgers hung in there, though, and again, some of those Achilles heels were shown. But as we head into the Big Ten tournament, the Badgers are heading in there as the number 2 seed, or as this airs, as the number 2 seed, and we see that they have the opportunity to maybe not be a 1 seed overall in the big dance, but they certainly have potentially solidified themselves as a 2 seed. And despite this loss, they're still in a great position. And the award winners, too. You know, we look at Nigel Hayes. He's the 6th man of the year on the all-freshman team. Have a first-team all-Big Tenner in Frank Kaminsky, and it was a pretty good showing for the Badgers.
Yeah, Frank Kaminsky is the big reason why I think Wisconsin's going to be a 2 seed in Milwaukee when the national tournament starts next week. He's been dominant the last 7-8 games for Wisconsin. I mean, averaging double figures. His rebounding's high. I mean, if there was a most improved player in the Big Ten, it would probably be Frank Kaminsky. Just a dominant year for Wisconsin.
Speaking of the Big Ten, we're going to break down the Big Ten tournament for you next right here on IBN. Welcome back into Inside Badger Nation. Phil and Ben with you, and we are talking hoops. Now, obviously, as of this airing, we have Big Ten tournament games happening. The Badgers playing Friday, 5:30. And as we look into this tournament, Ben, let's talk about some of the potential teams and the matchups that they could face, starting with Iowa. As you take a look at the bracket here, again, Iowa Northwestern happening, now? They have a chance to play Michigan State, potentially Iowa, and I think the third team, if they get through them, is Michigan the favorite up at the top of this bracket? Before they can even get there, though, Ben, talking about Iowa and Michigan State, this half of the bracket, Iowa is a team that they split with this year, and they beat twice this year, and they were able to do it both on the road, at home, and here their road game, where the Badgers didn't have the issues that they've had previously with Iowa, that they were able to get the points, able to get their big scorers going, and defensively able to hang tight enough, even despite a big game from him, big game from Roy Devin Marble. And what do you think of the matchup with Wisconsin and Iowa potentially in the Big Ten tournament?
Him being Josh Oglesby.
Oglesby, thank you.
You look at Iowa, and it just amazes me that this team went 9-9 in Big Ten play with the amount of talent that they have. And I think that just kind of goes to speak that the Hawkeyes have a deep rotation. They play a lot of guys, but it almost seems like their rotation's a little bit too deep, that they play so many guys that their best players don't get a lot of opportunities. I mean, look at their last game of the year where Iowa loses at home to Illinois, a team that really struggled in the early parts of the Big Ten play. And so you look at this entire bracket, there's no team, at least for me, that I look at Wisconsin matchup with. I think Wisconsin can beat anyone in this tournament. That's why I think Wisconsin's going to win this tournament. But you look at Iowa and you have to look at how they're going to get by Northwestern. I think they'll be able to do that. I just can't see them beating Michigan State.
Right.
As much as Michigan State has struggled here the last couple of weeks, I mean, they're getting all their players back with Dawson being back, and they're getting Appling back from injury. I mean, the last couple of games that they've played, I mean, when Wisconsin played them, they didn't have those two players, but they had Adrian Payne. Adrian Payne can only do so much. I mean, here's a dominant player who missed a lot of time as himself, and probably if he plays the entire season, he's an all first-team Big Ten selection. So I think Wisconsin's got a good chance here just based on their defense. I think that this game we saw on February 9th at the Kohl Center, a 60-58 win, just was one of Wisconsin's better games. This was at the point where they're just starting to come out of that big funk that they had losing 5 of 6. They're just starting to kind of put the pieces into place of what they need to do to be a successful team. I think this game probably was the catalyst that spurred them on that big 8-game winning streak, their longest they've had in conference play since, I think, 40-41. So I think Wisconsin is going to match up really well with Michigan State. I'm guessing that's going to be the matchup. I think Wisconsin is going to probably play Minnesota, a team that they split with, and a team that Minnesota has been playing well as of late, but certainly not as good as Wisconsin.
Now, Michigan State, the added dimension, like you said, if Appling is healthy, getting Dawson back. Gary Harris had a terrible game at the Kohl Center against the Badgers, and that was the only game the two teams played against each other. So matching up with the new-look Michigan State, and even though that they lost their final game at Ohio State right at the buzzer there, how much better can they be? Can this Michigan State team be?
I think when they're healthy and playing together, they're the best team in the Big Ten. I think that you put all the pieces in place of a healthy Adrian Payne, a healthy Gary Harris, and then some of those role players like Travis Trice and Appling. This is just a team that has that kind of that Final Four caliber potential. And Tom Izzo always puts those teams together. I mean, I think the average Michigan State player who stays 4 years goes to at least one Final Four.
And that would be this year, by the way.
And that would be this year. And so I think the big thing for Michigan State is they're going to use the Big Ten tournament as a real opportunity for them to kind of get that cohesion back when they played so well early in the year, when they went out to such a hot start, only dropping a weird game in the Big Ten ACC Challenge in North Carolina. So I think healthy, Michigan State can certainly be a really good basketball team, and a team that if you see them play well in Indianapolis, you probably should pencil in pretty far into your bracket because Tom Izzo always coaches well in that tournament.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens there. And then the potential matchup, is Michigan the best team in this tournament? They're obviously the Big Ten champions. They get the 1 seed. We saw the Badgers have their way with them in Ann Arbor, but right now they're the top dog. And will they be? Can they continue to be? And how does Wisconsin match up with them?
Wisconsin also played them pretty well offensively in the Kohl Center. They just didn't play very well defensively. If you remember that game, the first half, Wisconsin couldn't guard the dribble penetration, which was kind of the issue that was starting to pop up when we were seeing that during that losing streak. And then the second half, they couldn't guard the mid-range jumper. It was just really a bizarre game that Wisconsin still had a chance to win until Nick Stauskas late took over, and that's one of the reasons why he was Player of the Year in the Big Ten. Just a dominant year. I mean, Michigan lost 2 first-rounders, and you lose Mitch McGary this season to a back injury, and they still win the Big Ten by 3 games. I mean, just really impressive. I kind of like Wisconsin against Michigan on a neutral court just from this game alone. I mean, you take what you saw in the Kohl Center, a little bit, you take pieces of it, but this Wisconsin team is much different than the team we saw in January, and I think they're a much different team than we saw here. I think this is a confident bunch, a bunch that has gone to some tough places and won on the road. They've won more games away from the Kohl Center than any other team in Wisconsin history. I think it's going to be Wisconsin over Michigan State, and Wisconsin over Michigan in the Big Ten final.
Yeah, and hopefully we see all of those flaws that we have seen throughout the season corrected. And again, the teams that they face potentially in this Big Ten tournament may not be as good as exposing those flaws as some other teams. So when we come back, though, here on IBN, we're going to hear from Chris Borland going one-on-one with the Badger linebacker. Joined now by Chris Borland of the Wisconsin Badgers, and soon the NFL, right?
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. Take us through now. We were chatting just a little bit. You obviously did the combine, then came back here and did a lot of work. Take us through the process of the combine and now here. What was the decision-making process and, of course, all the work that you've done?
Yeah, well, went down to the combine a little over a week ago. Was a little disappointed with my performance. No excuses, just didn't do my best. So wanted a chance to get back here and redo some things. I improved on everything, so I think I showed the combine wasn't my top performance, and I've gotten good feedback. So as simple as that, but I'm glad today went fairly well.
Let's go back a little bit further now, wrapping up your career here at the University of Wisconsin, which was an incredible one. I mean, fans loved it. You had to have loved it. What things are going to stand out? What is already in the memory banks that keeps you happy?
Yeah, it's still pretty fresh. I've been busy these last couple months since the bowl game, but we had a lot of success here. Was able to be a part of a team that won 3 Big Ten championships, play with guys who've had outstanding NFL careers, and I think ultimately, as great as those things have been, the relationships have been awesome. Developed some lifelong friends and my fellow teammates and coaches, so couldn't have asked for a better college experience.
And of course, the tape doesn't lie when we're talking about Chris Borland. That certainly is probably the one thing that people can't ignore about you. But what they do at the combine is they pick and they prod and they like to take things. And what do you think about that process too, about deciding whether or not numbers are going to, decide where you go in a draft?
I think they're looking for red flags, and they want to see if anything's outside of what they expected, either in a good or bad way. And I was borderline for that. I ran slower than I should have, and had to come back and redo it today and did better. I've heard the expression in the combine is a devaluation process, not an evaluation process. So I think that's true. I think I needed pro day and was glad I got a chance to get a second crack at it.
Now you also have to do interviews and stuff. What do you sell to these? Because I'm assuming it's a sales process in a sense, is it not?
Yeah, it is, and you're selling yourself in these interviews, and I've got some lined up already, and it's fairly simple for me. I've got good game tape. I've put better numbers forth during pro day, and I'm a high character guy. I've been a leader at Wisconsin and will be in the NFL, so just tell the truth, be myself, and really develop relationships with NFL personnel.
What kinds of things do they want to know about you?
Everything. That's their job. They're paying you a lot of money, so any injuries, anytime you've been in trouble, anything like that. And it's easy for me because I played a lot of games and didn't get in trouble, so that usually goes pretty quickly.
Meanwhile, talking about what you can do in the NFL, how do you say that the tape that we saw here at Wisconsin and all the years of success that you've had here, how does that translate? Why does that translate to the next level?
I think for two reasons mainly. An intelligent player, you can see it on film, making calls and understanding where to go and at what time. And secondly to that, instinctual. Have a good feel for the game, play angles well and coverage well, and those things translate better than anything else to the NFL. So those are my strengths. I'm going to play to them.
Nose for the football is one that you didn't bring up. I'm going to bring up.
Yeah.
How do you have that? How does that develop? I mean, is that that's natural?
I think some of it's natural. I've played sports my whole life and probably sharpened it. But yeah, I've always felt like I had a pretty good feel for what's going on the field and understand angles and demeanor and just know how to get to the ball carrier.
What do you think that transitional step, the difficult portion will be when you do make that step to the next level?
Well, you're playing against some of the best athletes in the world, so you can't afford to make many missteps.
Yeah.
That's why football IQ is so important, understanding the game, and especially with a guy who isn't going to blow people away athletically. Need to be in the right spot at the right time. But again, I'm going to play to my strengths, and I've seen guys who play the game intelligently and quickly have a lot of success. So I'm confident.
How about working out from football-wise to now where we're looking at numbers and all that kind of thing, the de-evaluation process? How did that change? Was it different?
Yeah, I'd never really done it. Ran a little bit of track in high school, but really was more of a thrower. And it was unique for me to come in here and do some of the drills we were doing and working on starts and things like that because I'd never done it. But I think I improved at it, and I'm done with it now. So
Right.
Like a month and a half of working out like a track athlete, and now that's over.
And now, was that done here? Did you go anywhere to do that?
I trained here with John Detman and three of our guys, so it was a great experience. I think I helped myself, but I'm ready to play some football.
Now, also too, because we lead up to the draft, what happens in between now and that time period for you?
A lot. Teams will come in and work you out individually. I think it's more specific to their scheme, what they want to see out of you as far as drops and how you move, and maybe watch some film with you. Also, teams will fly you out and you'll visit on their turf and kind of do the same thing. From here on out, it's more mental. It's more chalk talk. It's more interviews. It's not. You still work out, but not as aggressively.
Yeah. And then, do you have plans for the draft yet? I mean, going to sit there and watch it? Have you been a fan of the NFL draft, or is it something that is?
Not really.
Not really?
No, I don't care. I'll probably just go home. I haven't seen my family a great deal, so I'll hang out with them, and I'm sure I'll watch it. But
yeah.
I'm not a big draft party guy.
And and then once you what do you want to accomplish in the NFL? What is that?
A lot. I think I'm going to take it step by step. My goal this year is to be NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year. I want to start and play at that level. So, got a lot of work to do. If I'm asked to play special teams, I'll gladly do that and look forward to that. But I'm a competitive guy, and I want to be that guy for a defense in the near future.
Well, I'll tell you what, Chris, it's been a pleasure to watch you and see you get better and better each and every year. And we all wish you the best of luck, and we'll be watching. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's Chris Borland here on IBN. Welcome back to Inside Badger Nation. Phil and Ben with you, and we ask you to check us out on YouTube, youtube.com. Then you just go to that search bar, type in Inside Badger Nation, boom, videos right there for you. If you don't know how to do that, just shut your laptop down. At InBadger Nation, you can find us on Twitter as well, keeping you up to date on what's going on with the show and the rest of the happenings in Badgerland. And email us, you can, insidebadgernation@gmail.com. For our email of the week, which is brought to us by 608 Restaurant and Bar. It's 212 State Street, where 608 is more than just an area code. And Kevin from Sun Prairie emails in. He says, who are some of the players to watch at the WIAA Boys Basketball Tournament this weekend? Well, Ben, there's actually quite a few, and I think we got to start with Diamond Stone because this is a national-type prospect we're talking about that the Badgers have been in on since he was a wee little lad.
Yeah, five-star player. He's rated, one of the top 10 players in his recruiting class, regardless of position. He's a guy who's incredibly aggressive. He's tall, he's lengthy, a shot blocker, scores at will, and he's, like you said, Phil, he's got offers from basically all the blue bloods in the country, or most of the blue bloods are talking to him at this point and probably will extend an offer somewhere down the road. Doesn't do a lot of recruiting interviews, so it's kind of hard to kind of gauge with where he's at, who he's all offered, but priority 1A for Wisconsin certainly is Diamond Stone out of Whitefish Bay, Dominican. Another state appearance for him. I believe this is his third straight year.
Yeah.
Another guy, too, to watch out for in Division II is Henry Ellenson from Rice Lake. Very talented guy. Wisconsin has got him down on campus a couple times. Diamond Stone, too, came down for the Ohio State and the Michigan State game. Ellenson also came for the Michigan State game. Talented player who Bo Ryan, Greg Gard, Gary Close, and Lamont Paris all went and watched at the same time for a game this year. I think he dropped 40 on him when he was there,
plus.
too. Very, very talented player. Probably priority 1B for Wisconsin right after Diamond Stone. If they can get one of those guys, it'd be great. Also, too, with Mugwanago in Division I, Dominic Sazaskas, Wisconsin football commit. So it'll be kind of fun to watch him play a little bit, see kind of the versatility that he brings. Wisconsin's still trying to get him officially signed. He's got some things he's working through, but Wisconsin football expects to have him on the field in the fall.
And again, too, we should point out both Diamond Stone, Henry Ellison, we're talking 2 years down the road because Ben Bruss, the only guy leaving this year as a senior on scholarship. So looking 2 years down the road when you lose the likes of a Frank Kaminsky. Meanwhile, why don't you tell us who Matt Helt is?
A very talented guy from Neenah, also going to be playing with Division I this year. And Helt's a guy who not a lot of people know about, but a guy who probably is going to be playing, close to home in the coming years here. A competitive, hardworking power forward, very talented player. We've seen kind of his game grow over the last several years. I don't know if Wisconsin basketball is going to ever extend a scholarship offer to him. They could, depending on kind of how his growth goes with AAU this season. But a guy who's been offered by Milwaukee, Green Bay, Davidson, Northern Illinois, Northern Iowa, and Toledo. So a lot of local schools are in for him, and a guy who I've seen him play a couple times, very talented player, and I think he'll have a very good career with wherever he lands. But just got to pick up his game a little bit more in order to get probably that Wisconsin offer.
Up next, going to Nick, how do you say this, Rakosovic?
Sure, we'll go with that too. Very talented guy too, who Wisconsin, Bo Ryan and Gary Close went down and watched him play before the Nebraska game. He, right in front of him, double-double, picked and popped, could hit from the perimeter, very aggressive on the glass, and Bo Ryan, after the game, told his coach he's got a scholarship offer. And here's a guy who's been offered by Creighton, Illinois offered him, a number of other really good schools have offered him. He's been up to Wisconsin too, was up for that Michigan State game, was a big recruiting weekend for Wisconsin. So this is a guy who I think has a really good opportunity in front of him. He's a 2016 kid, so a couple years down the road. But as you can see, he's got that athleticism, got that skill that Wisconsin really likes in his big men. I mean, so Bo Ryan goes down, watches him play. He puts on skills like this. No brainer that you offer him. He's a guy who's really improved over the last several months.
And in our last 30 seconds, Ben, we got a brand new commit to Gary Anderson, Andrew James, with the help of George Rushing.
Yeah, this happened on Tuesday night. Wisconsin offered him. They've been watching him for a couple weeks, extended the offer. Here's a guy who's not the biggest guy, 5'11", 165, but runs a 4.33 40-yard dash. If he's a couple inches taller, he probably gets some more scholarship offers. This is a great find for Wisconsin. We'll talk about him more down the road.
Can't wait. That's Ben. I'm Phil. We'll see you next time right here on IBN.